There's literally nothing on it, so.
Same question.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this is my wonderful team, or our wonderful team that we have for tonight. This is actually one of my favorite nights because it's an opportunity for us to share all the wonderful things that we're doing for our children. And we're reflecting on this past year, but we're always looking forward. So I think it's an opportunity for the board to ask questions about programs, departments, and also start thinking about how we're going to develop the budget. So if there's questions, please ask anybody that's here, but also if there's further information that you need to help us develop a better budget, please also let us know. So if you look at our first thing, it's always remember our vision, our purpose, that we are involving diverse community of learners, community personal growth and caring progress. So you'll hear this ongoing theme throughout the night. Also, our vision, more important than ever, is that each individual embraces today and navigates the possibilities of tomorrow. This may be we actually know a little bit more about CAA this year than in the past, but we really are also concerned about federal funding right now as well. So there's a lot of pieces that go into the budget. So as of today, it's what we're thinking for next year. We also, as you know, have our rater profile. This is what we want our students to graduate with. So you'll also hear this theme throughout departments and the buildings talking about that we want our students to not only have excellent academic skills, but also develop these skills to thrive in the future. We redid our goals up to 2027. So you'll hear tonight about curriculum development that are student-centered, very relevant, always looking at ways that we can create more rigorous and relevant curriculum. We're looking at creating instructional practices that go back to that rater profile. We're always looking to enhance our technology that's future focused. So you'll hear a little bit about that tonight. We also are constantly looking to improve our communication, to be timely, respectful of our audience, and accessible, and always looking for multiple perspectives as well. So we're looking forward to hearing more on our thoughts as well. We also have our DEI goals of talking about being inclusive, embracing diversity, and creating a safe place where our students' identities are affirmed. And of course, our mental health goal that really talks about, tonight we hear a lot about social, emotional, physical health, personal growth, and talking, we added the word resiliency because that comes up a lot with our students. So tonight, we're going to go through and you're going to get a chance to hear from each of our departments, again, about reflecting on this past year to date and then looking forward to next year. So we're going to start with Bruce, giving a little bit about what we know so far as regards to the budget.
And I don't want to miss the primary point, so I'll say it first, and then I'll say it repeatedly during this slide. Right now, very early on in the budget cycle, it appears to be shaping up as a very routine budget year. That does not mean the same thing as really, really easy money everywhere, but it seems to be shaping up to a very routine budget year. So oftentimes this slide is a little bit scary. The number down at the bottom for the structural deficit can be really, really big. It can be another $1 million bigger than what it's shaping up as this year. The structural deficit is just the result of the fact that the natural movement on the expenditure side wants to be in the vicinity of 4 or 5% every year. And the natural movement on the revenue side is going to be in the 2 or 3% range every year. And that leaves us with a challenge to do everything we're doing in the current year, again, in the following year. But when taking into consideration what the governor has said, if you look at the numerical column right before you get to the percentage columns, you see that that structural deficit shapes up to about $750,000. To me, that's a manageable number. That's something, we look at that, we've solved problems way bigger than that. So, things could change. Janet mentioned the federal funding. Right now, they're saying don't worry too much about that, but it's something we're keeping an eye on. Shaping up as a routine budget year. Over in the left-hand column, I did slide in the percentage of budget that each of those things represent. So staffing, again, right up there, just a hair under 80% of what we do on the expenditure side. Everything else, just a hair over 20. And then you can see in the revenue categories how we pay for things, and we are 53% locally funded, tax levy and related items. But one more time before I conclude, as of February 12th, with what we know, we're shaping up for a relatively routine budget cycle.
Any questions? Kelly, Aaron, and I were able to go to Albany today and speak to Sarah Armana, our Assembly woman, and also Senator Issue about the tax caps. It's just not sustainable. If you look at what Bruce is saying, we have collective bargaining. Usually, the will be at probably about 5%. So, as years go on, we also deal with inflation, just like we can with that. And food, for energy storage, so we again went up there to advocate that this is not a sustainable way to fund students. But we've probably been doing that probably for a really long time, so.
That'll come a lot.
Now, I understand the tax commissioner, the commissioner, that they will not be raising tax levy.
Yeah, there's no evidence anywhere in sight that there's any thought of changing.
Point, but it sounds like that isn't at least for next year, and that isn't changing.
And I will say that when, at the meeting next week, you'll see the tax cap calculation, but the tax levy growth factor will be the 2%. We do have a tax base growth factor that's above 2% this year. So we've talked about that a couple of times in the last 2 years, and this is actually the biggest tax base growth factor that we've seen. So that will expand our ability to stay under the cap and raise the levy a little bit more. We can talk about that a little more next week.
Will that get us to the 3.97%?
No, we would, so you can see the number I have in there right now for tax related items is 3.5%. I think, once the calculation is all done and we take into consideration exclusions and the like, we might be bumping up near 4% and still be under the tax cap. But that will not fully close the structural deficit. We'll have to make other maneuvers along the way for budget season.
The 5% staffing, and just in previous years how that got that more like 25% in that rate, and I would just carry that down.
So as Janet mentioned, most of our collective bargaining agreements are settled in the mid to upper 4s right now, and that's because that's been the market, but also in that number. I didn't want to highlight negative here, but one of the things that is a little out of range this year is health insurance. We're looking at the probability that the health insurance renewal will be around 8%. We're also looking at the probability that we will not have a premium holiday this year. Staffing is not just the cost of compensation in the form of paycheck, but it's also health insurance, FICA, Med, TRS, ERS, and health insurance is moving a little bit more, and the ERS looks like it's going to move just a little bit more as well.
I think in previous budget, she also broke down. I recall health insurance.
Yeah, and,
Both the time we do.
yeah, and I will do that as we go forward. I'm trying to streamline and simplify for high level on tonight's meeting.
I think it's important to highlight, I think our conversations today, Senator Teaching, pointing out that last year, many districts got a 0% increase. We actually had a deficit last year. So she was saying 2% this year is better than 0%, but when our expenditure budget moved to 45%, we're looking at now an 8% increase in we were only at 2% revenue. So part of my job is to look for revenue sources, efficiencies, and also to still handle the unfunded mandate, which I'll mention today, which they carry over year to year. So I'm going to update on that. I'm sure Don's going to highlight some of our software platforms that we introduced this year, but one of them is Opera's. We use that to streamline our personnel process, which looking at human resources and the time that it takes to fill out some of these kind of integrated processes. Forms and things, we worked hard to digitize a lot of that. We did have to complete the NYSERDA grant this year, so as you know, we're approved for up to 6 electric vehicles. We purchased 2 of them, but part of that work to receive that money was that Anthony had to scrap some diesel buses, which was a much harder process than we anticipated. We're able to complete that, so we finalized the NYSERDA grant. So 2 of those buses, the funding that we received, we should receive those buses by May 1st this year. Excited to put them on the road and see how they run. We are wrapping up the capital project work 2020. As you can see, the windows are down here. It's beautiful. The air conditioning fully in high school. There's some HVAC work that we've done here as well as window work. We do have a couple of last minute finishes that we have to tweak here and there. One of the biggest things is just making sure that the AC is fully functional at the high school. If we are unable to do that, so we have a screening on today. So weather dependent, we're going to run that in June. On a hot day, we're going to crank it up and make sure that it cools off the entire building. So we're excited about that. We worked hard on some aesthetic upgrades you've seen in each of the buildings. The hallway paint in the high school, Colleen and grounds for designers, we've got some great colors there. We're hoping to expand that throughout the building to finish that work. I'll talk a little bit about the columns and things that we're doing in the middle school. We have some different projects that taking those ideas for expanding there, including library that we're looking at, getting rid of the old garage door to put in windows, just some paintings and things like that. So Brian and Kristen are looking to upgrade our lobby here at Bell Road. So just looking at some of those, first glimpses of buildings that people walk in, which are really important. We want to make sure that our outside and our inside and all the great work we do in programming. We still have to develop a solution for Field 1. As you know, the capital project proposition was defeated in October, but our safety concerns and usage concerns remain. So I will go into more detail about that next week and also the EV buses, but we do have to make a decision about what we're going to do with Field 1. We have worked this year to highlight the non-tuition or non-resident tuition programs. So we've doubled our revenue this year from last year in the number of tuition students that we've welcomed. We now have a dedicated tuition paying page on our website. We have a new video that we just finished. So we're starting at the high school. We're going to work our way down to Mill Road. But we wanted to share the video.
So being a regular is someone that carries a lot of pride, carries a lot of, there's a lot of weight everyone that goes here. The sense of community here, I don't think it's found in many schools.
We're gonna be special place because there's so much opportunity for no matter what you enjoy. The depth that they offer in these areas through the IB program especially. If you know that you're pretty interested in a certain subject, you can really dive into it. Film, we have a lot of art electives. I think film is super cool and very unique. I took the video production class once, which is probably one of the only classes where you get to learn about animation. I took a financial literacy class in 10th grade.
Our shop, our woodworking and our auto mechanical classes are the best.
They're coding a lot. So having the ability to take an AP compare science class, which really made my school day a lot more interesting. Currently taking, retail, and that's, I get as college credit through Dutchess Kansas Community College. There's a study called the Foreign Bridge Program. You are able to enroll a class in the foreign college. That's a really unique and really superb educational opportunity. I'm a part of the full IB, I'm the full IB support candidate, so I think that being able to take such rigorous classes really set me up for success in terms of work ethic in my future career in college. I'm not sure how many high schools actually offer IB psychology or like a higher level psychology class. That going to like, still not entirely sure what I want to do in college. I think it was a really good looking college level psychology class. I'm also in IB theater right now, and we're doing deep dive into so many different forms of theater from all around the world, different centuries. It's really incredible. But more than that, like all the extracurriculars, the clubs, the sports that we offer, there's really something for everyone. I'm involved in the robotics team, the RoboRaider, which I think is a very special element of the freshman experience. Mainly, I'm involved with the musicals and like the ball plays here, which that's such a wonderful community, like in itself. I play soccer, I play football, basketball, or whether I'm wrestling. I run track and I play soccer. There's nothing like playing from the racetrack. There's nothing like playing the home field against rivals. On the BOP, the field and level teams, which allows me to kind of have more of a say in my school life. I'm also a member of the Board of Ed, the student representative. Students have a lot of input. We're invited to attend board meetings. We can, share them online. We can set advisory for any clubs we want to start. It's really a student forward school. I think that the resources that are available with students has made my life a lot more interesting, made me able to achieve a lot more. All the faculty are super kind. Everybody's friends here. Red Hook is so supportive. They have so many supportive teachers, and since we have such diverse, selection of classes, there will always be something for you. It's a very welcoming community. I was a new person to the district when I first came here my freshman year, and I really did have made some very good friends and met good people, and I just really like the community here. Red Hook is very inclusive, and it's very creative. There's a lot of different things you can do, and there's a lot of freedom in what you choose to do, whether that be film, art, sports. Everything has a really good environment, and it seems like a whole community rather than just school.
So the kids did a great job, completely unscripted, which is great. Like I checked the video, but actually we have so much to highlight, right? Nothing that's just some of our rebuilding. And I think that, we really have to face the reality that by the districts of the strength population, and really trying to maintain our numbers so we can maintain the program and looking for future things to and there are a lot of people that didn't realize that they didn't come here, so we worked it and I really took breakfast, which was great. So I have brochures for everybody to take a look at. We but so our goal is to do things which are and expand the middle school. Great. We are looking at starting our project this summer. Right now we are on two parties and for the gym and for the columns at Mill Road, plans, and also for the lockdown buttons. We are planning to at the first week of March to a third party reviewer. As I mentioned before, FED is about 11%. Plans, so we are opting to use a third party reviewer to expedite that. Our goal is to get some gym and have that either by. That's a great target to do that. The columns at plans. We have some good news about they're actually all intact. We're looking at the athletic upgrades and still maintaining the integrity of the architecture. So we're going to keep the whole building and have those completely and kind of stay and kind of replace the tile. It should look vintage original and very We have to make a decision about the EV buses. As of right now, the mandate is still in place. So as of 2027, we are no longer allowed to buy school buses. We do have grant approval for more buses. So we have to make a decision if we're going to put those out in bus competition in May with the, so I will talk about that in more detail next week. But I'm happy to answer questions about that now. We are going to continue building upgrade based on the 3 to 5 year facility plan. So Scott will touch on the little bit in his presentation tonight, but he is working on a 3 to 5 year facilities plan based on our building condition survey, input from principals and things that we want to see upgraded, things that we have to upgrade infrastructure wise, in combination with capital projects that are already in place. We're always looking for new grant opportunities. Sarah talks today about a bill that she's going to put forth for schools to apply for grants for geothermal, which is really exciting and something that we would definitely
advantage of. Next week, I'm also going to talk about the efficiency study that we had done, and one of the recommendations was geothermal at the middle school. But it's $14 million to put the system in, so having
that goes through, that's something that
we're going to expand the non-tuition or the non-resident tuition paying program. Like I said, we're also looking at different business and learning opportunities in the village property, which I know that Janet has mentioned before. So we are going to visit a school in Texas that does something similar with an off property. I know Kyle and Colleen and Stacy and Paul have some ideas about what we could use that space for. So we toured it again last week to have more service learning, maybe some kind of cafe, retail space in there for the kids to actually learn how to run a business, which would be really great to expand our classes into that space. And we're looking at expanding community relationships. I do have some people that are interested in the community at they want to offer shadowing programs, internship programs for our high school students. So I think there's a lot of opportunity within the community for kids to expand beyond. We partnered with Nuvance last year, so there's a lot of different medical shadowing programs that are happening for kids in the medical field, but we want to go beyond that. So we're lucky enough to have a lot of people interested. And we are going to continue with the SRO program. So we're lucky to have 2 dedicated SROs here every single day, Mill Road and Secondary. So we've come a long way in that sense, and they really are a huge asset. I know that we all utilize them regularly. We feel like they know the community very well. They've gotten to know the kids, and so they're really a big resource. So we're looking at transitioning next year into using them more proactively and not always reactively. So having them more involved in our safety team meetings and looking at different things that we can do to just general safety upgrades all around. Happy to answer any questions.
I was tardy. Are the grants similarly set up?
Or what? I'm
The
sorry.
grants that you're considering for the next round of EV buses?
So there
similar?
are no more grants. There's another round of the EPA grant, but as you remember, we were not awarded the first round. We are not considered a district in need. Part of our conversation today was that doesn't make them affordable for districts just because we are not a district in need. They're very cost prohibitive. They're just without the grant money, as you know, and I've said they're 3 times the amount of. So to ask the community to bond something like that is a big ask. So right now, like I said, we have the 4 buses remaining. So it would cost their credit is over 200,000 for each bus. So it cuts it in half. And I'll talk about it a little bit next week, and I'm sure Anthony's going to touch on this. But part of what we have to consider for the next round of buses, if we do decide to go that route, is we have to find a way to sustain the heating on them. So our options are either to use a diesel fuel heater or a larger battery, which makes the bus more expensive.
Does it look like there will be state funding?
They talked about NYSERDA money again today, but we've exhausted what we can take right now. I don't know if they'll end up opening more up. I don't know if they talked about, there's a lot of push within the legislature to change the mandate, to even push back the timeline because a lot of districts are having difficulty. We have 40 buses in the fleet, and in order to change them over by their mandate in 2035, I had mentioned last year we would have to purchase 4 already behind because we purchased 2. So at some point, if the mandate continues, it's going to catch up with us at large numbers having to purchase moving. But there is some grant money available for chargers, which we've applied. But the infrastructure is something we also have to consider because beyond the 6 buses, we have to build entire infrastructure at the bus garage or somewhere on campus to be able to charge them. The other thing that still remains is because we're one of the few schools that are getting the electric buses, if for Tom to use them for, athletic runs, we have nowhere to charge them. To go to another school, don't have that ability, so we would still have to use fuel buses for that. So there are a lot of obstacles and challenges, but and we're also anxious to see how these run when we put them.
Thank you. Dr. Summers?
I have a
Oh,
quick
sorry.
question on the buses, sorry. Do you know where we are in comparison to like other schools in the region in terms of we may be like behind to reach the mandate of 4 buses per year, but are other schools in the same boat?
We're actually ahead of the game.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
Dutchess County, Hyde Park has 1 bus. They just went down.
Arlington has 1.
Yeah, so a lot of districts are just not moving at all.
I think the only district around that made a significant move was it Oneonta?
I don't even know where that
Was
is.
it
Only-
Ontario?
Oh, no, Ontario
Sorry,
actually
sorry.
gave the money
No, they
back.
gave the money
because
back.
They can't, it's it's too much area, so they got a grant and they actually
Yeah.
gave the money back and said it wouldn't
So
cost prohibitive.
Aniora is 300 square miles, Red Hook is 90, just to make a comparison. A lot of their trips are up in the mountains and they just found that it wasn't feasible.
But they were getting funding to cover like a whole
They
fleet.
were a pilot.
Yeah, and they
Yeah,
had to
they
give it
give it
back.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, Dr. Summers, you said Bethlehem School up in the
Yes,
Albany area?
Bethlehem has, EV
Yeah,
buses.
And I don't know, Anthony, do you know about any other districts really? Not in the county.
I think there's a lot more questions we could ask, but.
Yeah,
Good.
there's probably a lot more questions.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep a bunch, but how many buses are you going to turn over this year potentially? Because I know you mentioned that part of it was getting rid of some buses. Are there buses that are on the block?
All right. Thank you. Dr. Summers?
Thank you. So good evening, everyone. So the work continues with curriculum instruction and staff development. As we look at our reflection on our goals, certainly we are looking at staffing projections and planning. I've certainly shared out to the board on a number of presentations about our curriculum mapping, our course development, summer academy. And this is all happening this year is our project problem-based learning, professional development, the secondary level, and certainly the work that Dr. Linda Jordan does with us on future-focused innovation across the district. She will be with us again on March 14th for our superintendent's conference day, and we have invited a lot of input from our staff, our administrative team to help support that scheduling and what that should look like. So planning for 25-26, these are all the state ed initiatives that have been handed down under curriculums, instruction and staff development. So that's really what the focus of the curriculum office will be. So that looks like the graduation requirements shifting with the Blue Ribbon Commission, standards and instruction shifting with that, especially in the pre-K 3 arena and under literacy. We are well ahead of the game in a lot of these areas. Assessments are shifting. APPR, we have a great committee working on that. That has shifted. Regionalization, we did do the strengths tool that was offered through state ed that was completed, and we will get feedback on that by next November. We will continue with staffing projects, planning based on enrollment. Summer Academy will continue this summer. We will start to do a reflective review of curriculum mapping, and we will always continue to provide relevant professional development for our teaching staff, our administrative staff, and also our support staff. So we look forward to a very exciting year next year, and I'm very excited to be part of this team that's in front of us. So thank you.
I think Kitty should pass that timeline around. There are a lot of, she did it with very ease, but there are a lot of changes that are rapidly happening in the state education department. And I think we have great committees and people working on, but it would be, I think, helpful to see there are a lot of things happening in the curriculum and instruction world and the state level. And I would reiterate that I think we knew it was coming and had pre-planned for a lot of this work. So anybody have any questions?
How is enrollment looking for the coming school year?
Where are we, Brian? Brian, are you going to touch upon that? Like enrollment? You have some numbers? Okay. Yeah. I think we're similar to where we were this time last year as far as numbers of kids, which is good. And I think the pre-K class helps with the enrollment, the out of district, there's other variables, but regardless of the number of the kids, you got to still do every, you still have all these different things we still have to do. So, but it's good. I think we're remaining constant where a lot of people are declining pretty rapidly. Okay, thank you. Mr. Costello.
Good evening. So, other than our grant, we're pretty much status quo for this year, but we did implement 3 new pieces from the RECUBS grant, one being our clinical mental health programs at the middle school and high school, which are going quite well. We doubled the number of hours we have with our behaviorist, and she's primarily focusing on the elementary school. And her services are in hot demand, but going very well. And then the other piece that hasn't started yet, but will happen by the end of the year is next month we have 4 of our staff being trained in teen mental health first aid, so that all of our 9th graders will receive that training during their freshman focus by the end of the year. So we're excited about that. And this year we just continue to expand our special ed programs for out of district students. We're up to about 9 students from other districts, which is probably included somewhere in Mr. Martin's revenue stream. We are looking at, for next year, continuing our grants. We'll be in year 2 of that grant cycle, and prepping to hopefully show the board next year the value of continuing that work, even though it's not going to be under a grant. And we're looking at potentially expanding our flex classes. I turned down quite a few out of district applicants. Districts are sending to us, asking us to consider their students for our programs, and we just don't have room. So we are, have a potential for expanding those programs if the district wanted to move in that direction. And along with that, the other piece that we'll be working on is really trying to figure out the mess that is preschool special education in the state of New York. State is not going to be helping us out, and we are going to have to figure out how to service our preschool students. And so one of the things I'll be asking the district to consider is adding some staffing in related services so we can service and evaluate our preschool students when the county can't. Right now, it's taking about 4 months to get a preschool student evaluated. And right now, I've been only able to tell parents, no, we don't have any providers for you, even though your child qualifies. And it's becoming, even from the beginning of the year now, we just don't have enough providers from that are on the county approved list. so those would be the big things I'll be working on next year.
On the support, is it related to preschool? I assume, as with a lot of things, early identification of issues or challenges is like really important in being able to. So to the extent that these are kids that are going to be with us for 13 years plus, you know, it helps us help them to, you know.
And it's exacerbated by the fact that early intervention is broken too. So early intervention is telling parents to refer their children to us even before they're 3. So I have kids that are just over 2 in the hopper to try to get them evaluated for CPSE, even though they're not age eligible yet, because early intervention has no evaluators or providers either. So what's going to happen is it just stacks up. So when these kids don't get services at the earliest level where it could have the greatest impact, we end up increasing the need coming into kindergarten to support those services.
If we become providers, do we get the same reimbursement that the county would?
We do, and it, you know, of course, it's very low, so it's not gonna, you know, we're not gonna be
cover the
making money.
costs.
You know, if we, you know, I figured it out, if we actually billed for every single service that we could provide just to the district and not use anybody else, we would only be able to fund 1 of 2 positions I'd be looking to add with that reimbursement.
But like you said, if you don't, we're gonna somehow at some point, you're gonna.
Well,
probably
what's
need to
happening
provide that.
statewide is families are starting to sue their school districts and they're winning for not providing.
Yeah, I mean, early intervention is, yeah, I mean, it's, you know.
It's
help-
also taking on now another service that another agency was.
Yeah.
So other than that, the grant's going great. It was, you know, it's really life-changing for the kids involved, so. that's
Yeah, I
the
don't
thing
think Jack's giving himself enough credit. The students that are in that program have been able to stay in the schools and receive those services, and every child deserves to be in the school, you know, homeschool that they're in. So I think we've seen a lot of success and have learned, and we will continue to reflect on it, but we appreciate that effort, because a lot of those students may not even come to school. Right.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So after this second year of the grant, what is the anticipated cost with the growth of the program? What are you looking at? And I know that that's a hard question.
I'm confident in saying that if we don't continue the program, those kids will end up being out of district or dropouts, and we will pay way more than the cost of the program would cost us without the grant.
Right, and one of the discussions that we have had too is if we do take maybe a couple out of districts students, the programs that could offset some of the costs too, but we want to keep those slots, so it's trying to figure
And I
out.
have other districts asking us for their kids to come to the program, but I've been saying no.
Do we have I'm sorry, do we have the space if we were to become providers and expand what we're doing already, make it more internally self-sufficient, then do we also have room in the district to be able to do that physically?
I would actually have to defer to my building colleagues because.
So
it's
you
their
mean like
building.
space for speech and
Coaching.
OT? Yeah, I mean.
But in
Because it
terms
would
of-
be really interesting to look
add
at
an
this
OT or and a
possibility.
PT provider, we can absorb them into the space we have right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
That was my question, but also, so in the high school, we have, with the ESS program, we have a classroom as well as an office. And so there was talk for the second year, possibly getting a classroom also at the middle school. Are we still on track to do that, or?
We will be moving, hopefully, if the board moves forward with our potential staffing at the next board meeting, we'll be able to add teaching assistant support
Okay,
for the ESS program, which will help.
okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Jack. Mr. Casada?
Evening. So part of what we're working on right now, which was one of my goals from last year, is obviously we've had we're looking at our athletic fields and space capital improvement. As Dr. Hayes said, we're kind of deep into the gymnasium project right now, and it's been exciting because we're getting down to some of the detail things that will be different than the current structure, involving the staff and some of the, you know, the color schemes and the different lines that we're going to put on in there and looking at how that's going to shape up hopefully for this summer. So that's been wonderful to be a part of, and I'm thankful to be part of that process. A few things, I mean, everybody's sick of hearing me saying it, but you know, the disappointment obviously in some of the projects that didn't pass for different reasons. And future considerations of that for some of the fields which we'll talk about in a minute. So we did expand some of the education curriculum for phys ed at the high school and middle school. The high school unified PE, and at middle school 2 sections of lifetime activities and personal wellness, which have gone over well. Well attended by our students and seem to be very positive. So we're happy about that. It's tough for those electives in our areas. Also continued merged athletic programs. As you know, we merge for our football program. We have mergers for boys lacrosse. So this year I'm proposing to add, we're adding modified girls lacrosse, and Rhinebeck has an interest in participating in that for this spring. So we're happy to do that. I think it's a natural progression from what we've done with the other sports. They're coming here anyway, so they're very excited about that. A lot of our kids played together in the youth league, which is one of the reasons why we brought in for the boys lacrosse. So those kids have the ability to play, you know, for a high school team. It's been very successful. Several kids, several kids from Rhinebeck for lacrosse. In Germantown, we have several kids in the football program as well. So it's worked well for those sports that those schools cannot host. So we've been happy to have that positive relationship with them.
Are we looking at that as a way of supporting, like, say, in sports where we don't have a JV team? We have like a modified and a varsity team, but we don't have a JV.
Yeah, so the model in lacrosse right now is a varsity and a modified. It seems to be a lot of schools our size and schools in our league, that's what they do. Having enough to run 3 programs is challenging, especially on the girls' side. We offer a lot of girls' sports, so you're grabbing from a small pool.
Yeah.
You know, for me, one of the worst things is, you know, we have to have team cuts, but it also shows us that we have more kids. Sometimes that's better than, you know, trying to beg kids to come out because we don't have enough. So I think the 2 levels works out nicely. Last year on the boys, it was the first year the boys modified, and we had roughly 30, and we had roughly 30 on the varsity. So it was a good mix of, you know, having enough. I think if we had 3 teams of 20, that's a little tricky as far as the numbers. So the girls would be on a similar stage like that.
Without a JV team, do you have 9th graders that kind of are too far along for modified, but you know, if they don't make varsity, we kind of just lose them?
Yes, so the model
play for a year, are they going to come back?
Right, model when you have just the 2 programs is your modified to play 7th, 8th, and 9th. Now, we've always talked about if some of your stronger 9th graders, you know, may come up to the varsity. And boys and girls lacrosse very different. The girls game is not as physical, obviously, as the boys. So you may see some of the, you know, the 9th graders, you know, up on the varsity for the girls. As a boys, you might not. They might need that extra year to get, you know, bigger and stronger. So comes down to some of it being a safety factor.
Okay, all right.
Good question. Just talking about programming. Has there been any discussion about girls flag football? There was a Super Bowl commercial there, and I know a number of local school districts are beginning to adopt that program.
So I've had a few girls approach me. Some of my concerns is, like we've talked about, is just having enough girls to go around. You know, so when you add another girl sport, let's say in the spring, you make still 5 lacrosse girls and 4 softball girls, and now I'm having trouble fielding those 2 teams. Some of the schools that have done it are a lot of our larger schools. Like Rhinebeck's going through it now. They started girls lacrosse, and it's really hurt their softball program. They're struggling to field a softball program. So I think some of that's driven by enrollment and just, you know, having enough girls to go around. Our track program is very successful. So a lot of those girls, you know, they stick with track, and, you know, trying to have enough for each team is something that definitely concerns me.
Well, to the extent that we can, you know, do the merged approach, you know, as needed with other districts, Rhinebeck or Pine Plains.
So maybe we can go there and be on their flag football team. So everybody wants to come here. So part of for the planning of the gym, you know, one of the things that I'm looking at is the management of that new space, the scheduling, which would be very, very similar to what we're doing now. The event management, we're changing how we're having bleachers, so that'll impact how we're running events, and the general care of the facility. If you were at the boys basketball game last Tuesday night, we had almost 700 people in that gym. So I hope to continue having large scale events like that, but having a new layout will, give us some advantages of where we can move things and how to move some of the crowd and things like that. It's wonderful to have those large scale events, and we're excited to have that, with the new facility, hopefully that we can get built this summer. Future considerations and solutions for Field 1. Nothing new there. The problem has not gone away. I'm still in a situation where something needs to be done, either immediately or a long-term fix. So I'm assuming we'll have a lot of more discussions going on with that this year. Design and construction phase of the one grass field, the West Soccer Field, hopefully summer of 2026. So hopefully we'll be looking at those designs for next year and trying to make that happen, and looking at how we're going to, similar to the gym, do we tweak things, do we make things different and add the details there of things that we want fixed with the current field to be put up for the new field. So then the timing and design of the second grass field, hopefully on the East Soccer Field. One of the things that our facilities committee is looking at is the potential of the sewer program for the town. That would impact that field, especially to use the field all the way to the east. Because as you know, that's where the septic system is. So if we tie into the regular sewer and we can eliminate that septic system, I think that would be best. If that doesn't happen, we may look to that other field that's right next to it for that last field. And I think delaying that is probably the best idea right now until we kind of figure how that all shakes out as well. So expansion of unified sports. So I wish we still had the bowling alley in town. Because Unified Bowling is an exceptional program that a lot of schools get to take advantage of. So it's maybe my pitch for us to buy the bowling alley, but it's a great program. We have Unified Basketball, and it's tremendous. The issue with that, and my friend here, Anthony, is transportation. Yeah, there's bowling alleys in Kingston and Hyde Park, but getting the kids there for the practice requirements and games, it's definitely a challenge. So interestingly enough, years ago we approached the bowling alley about starting a bowling team for the schools. It was myself, Rhinebeck, and Pine Plains athletic directors, and they really didn't have a whole lot of interest. And a few years later, the bowling alley's not there. So it's a shame because it would have been a great resource. So some of the other things, maybe expanding some of the physical education programs, offering more electives. I think that's great. I think the kids like to see that choice. So we're hopefully happy to promote that in the future as well.
Thanks, Sam. Donna, let's talk about technology and communication.
How about now? That's better. All right. So I'll just take a few minutes to talk about our current school year goals. So we continued the build out of ClassLink. ClassLink is a single sign-on platform that allows teachers and students to more easily use all of the instructional tools that we've made available to them. Because you sign into ClassLink, and then from ClassLink's Launchpad, you now have access to all of the software tools from there. So students aren't having to remember, 24 passwords, and it's really a great platform. We are continuing. We are in year 3 of our one-to-one device program. Year 1, as you may recall, was funded by the Smart Schools bond monies. And as part of that award of those funds to the districts, any district that participates in the use of Smart Schools monies, you have to make a commitment that you're going to continue that initiative forward. So this year is year 3 of that. We deployed brand new devices, MacBooks, for all of our 9th graders. We purchase those MacBooks with 4-year AppleCare, which is a coverage that's made available to school districts. And I will tell you, we make good use of that AppleCare coverage. We repurposed our exiting 12th and 8th graders devices. Again, those were purchased with 4 years of coverage, and because we started 3 years ago, those devices had not come to the end of their useful life or their coverage. So some of those devices went to our 6th graders. We held back basically almost a duplicate set of them, because during the time that those 6th graders will have those devices at the middle school, they will run out of AppleCare coverage. So we're hedging our bets by sort of mothballing some replacements for that. And we also had an opportunity to bring our one-to-one down to the 5th grade. So every 5th grader is assigned a MacBook. They stay in school, and they are stored in their classrooms in carts that we had available from prior initiatives. We implemented several new instructional software applications, again, harnessing the power of that ClassLink single sign-on. Typing.com for our friends in the elementary building, Conmigo at the high school, Lexia, BrainPop, Happy Numbers, iExcel, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of fun. It's like that children's book, if you give a moose a muffin, he's then going to ask for. And that's what we see in sort of the natural progression of this build out of the one-to-one initiative. When students and teachers have devices available for their use, they start to come up with new and meaningful ways for those to be used in the classroom. We rolled out Operu. Operu is an electronic document management platform. This was a need that was brought to the IT department's attention repeatedly through various conversations with, oh my gosh, we get this stack of paper every year at the start of the school year, and we got to fill out, yeah, it's all about you. We have to fill out these forms. Can we do something a little bit more current with that process? And so Operu was what we chose to use to do that. And then again, that platform continues to be built out for personnel functions, for permission slips at the high school. So again, it's in its toddlerhood, if you will. And I'm sure that as it matures as a platform and we become more experienced in using it, we'll find all kinds of different ways to use it. We also continued a commitment under the cybersecurity responsibilities that the department has to roll out multi-factor authentication. And so all of our staff login accounts for Microsoft 365, for Envision, and most recently eSchool Data are protected with MFA. That was a big project and continues to require a fair amount of IT support. So looking ahead to 25-26, I have a request to look at right-sizing the staffing for the IT department. The last time we added any staffing to the department was 10 years ago. And we have, our responsibilities have continued to grow as the use of technology and the interconnections between other departments and their functions, instructional needs has also grown. We're looking this summer to partner with our technology assistance coaches. These are a stipended faculty member in each building who is frontline support for their colleagues. We're going to partner with them and some other faculty to offer a series of summer PD workshops focused around technology use. We had hoped to pull this off last summer, but the chaos of the construction district-wide made being able to book space and know it was going to be available and that people could actually get down the hallway to it really challenging. So we're coming back at that this summer. We continue to work on our cybersecurity awareness, documentation, training, preparation. I don't have a beautiful chart like Dr. Summers did, but if you look at yes, thank you, Larry. But if you look at the expectations, the mandates, the thou shalts coming down from the state ed department around data privacy, around cybersecurity in schools, it is significant. We're obviously going to continue to build out tools that we have have available to us to use. So for ClassLink, we're going to be adding software costing functionality to that and usage tracking so that we can go at purchasing decisions and renewals of tools with data behind it. And we're going to be continuing our lease replacement cycles for the student one-to-one devices going forward in 25-26. So that's my technology presentation. Are there any questions before I move on to communication?
I do have a question. So with the talk that the governor is considering banning cell phones, do you see something like the Yonder pouches being an addition to your budget?
So that would be a question that I would defer to the building principals.
I think we're still waiting to definitely see the complete mandate at this point too. So I don't believe that we would have a
Maybe there will be some
answer.
flexibility in how we do that.
We have voiced that we felt like it was something that the high school and middle school have already dealt with.
Correct.
So we have voiced the local control, but it has a ton of support in the legislative
Well,
committee, so.
What restrictions, I think I know the answer to this, do we have on, let's say there's a cell phone, ban, or they have to put them in pouches at the high school, middle school. What controls do we have on the laptops that they all have as far as,
We
what they
turned a
can?
lot of things off at the middle
Yeah.
school.
So we have filtering that runs on the network. We frequently respond to requests from our colleagues to turn off sites.
So they
you know,
can't,
they're-
act like they, from their laptop, they can't access messaging sites. They don't have their phone. Why not just hop on the laptop?
So I will tell you, Russ, we have a lot of very talented, creative students who find ways to do all kinds of things. And so when they find those and that becomes an issue, then we come behind and turn them off. We add additional controls to the laptop so that we're addressing that to the best of our ability.
And does that really work?
It works until they find the next new thing. It really is just, it's a constant game of sort of leapfrogging.
Yeah.
Do teachers have a role in like overseeing online activity in terms of like a software that allows them to see what students are doing in their classrooms in real time?
So yes, and so as an Apple district, we have Apple Classroom enabled. There are some workarounds that students can do with that. So we have been working diligently, but not as quickly as perhaps everyone would like, to roll out a different platform that is not browser specific, so that students don't necessarily have to be signed in with their Apple ID on their school MacBook in order for teachers to be able to view that. So we're going to be piloting that in one of our science classrooms next week. And if that goes well, all of the data integration work has been done on the back end of that. We will be in a good position to just push that out.
Sorry not to belabor this. Can students download and install applications?
No.
No, okay.
Trying to keep all this confidential.
Yeah, I'm just
Sorry.
wondering how, as it comes in the 25, 26 years, how these things might go together, working with Dr. Summers in curriculum and seeing how these things kind of connect. So we're not maybe missing opportunities to enhance the classroom. I'm sure you've thought about these things, but I'm just wondering how that turns out in terms of the innovation side of moving our tech department with the curriculum.
Yeah, I would say that that currently happens. I think that the teachers, the administrators see a need in a certain curricular area, more personalized learning. I know that I've seen many classrooms recently where the teachers are using some of that personalized learning to help edit written work. Well, they can now conference longer with students. So a lot of this is going to create that more personalized, free up teachers to really have time to work with students instead of like putting out fires with like 20 students. Now I can go online and a student can look up what's another word for, what does this mean? And they don't perhaps need the they won't raise their hand as much because they're going to have that instant feedback. Not only for writing, but for math. I mean, you can just press that and they'll show you an example. Before that, you would wait for the teacher to come over and provide that example for you. So I see that connection occurring, now.
And I'll also share that, Donna and I meet weekly, every week since the beginning of time. Because we have, we went from a district that did not really have technology at the forefront to where it is embedded across the district as a fundamental tool that is utilized both by students and teachers and administrators. So with that comes the tech training, and keeping relevant professional development current. So we have a lot of conversations, and so we're really interwoven in our discussions about how technology supports teaching and learning, but also how teaching and learning supports technology.
I think that personalization of learning is going to like revolutionize things for teachers, like the freeing up of your time to focus, and also just the curriculum and lesson plans that you can get. I mean, anybody who started teaching, when I started teaching, we would go to the parent teacher store and that was where we found our curriculum. Now I can just go on and I can get lesson plans in 10 seconds. So just the time the teachers are spending with that technology and the way that you could personalize for students is amazing. And even in the past couple of years, just seeing AI and what it can do for students. So it's every day there's something.
Yeah, it's every day. So just one reflection. Several years ago, the district was invited to participate in computer-based testing trials at the elementary building. At the time, we had a fixed computer lab on the first floor of Mill Road Intermediate. It was painful to watch students try to interact with a keyboard while they were doing this trial field testing, I guess they called it. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, the fourth graders. So computer-based testing is, again, one of those areas where the IT department never really had a role in state assessment testing. And now we are in it. We are managing the system that the state uses to queue up who's going to take what test. We are sitting in the hallway while the word has escaped me, the trial testing that we were doing, simulation testing, thank you, is going on just to be there as an additional support. But watching those fourth graders and their teachers go through that simulation, they were on it and just working through it. And that's in the span of a few years. It's amazing.
I just have a quick question. For the devices, when the 4-year Apple Care expires, what happens to them?
So if there's any life left to them, we keep them, and we keep them as spares because we invariably have students show up to school either with a device not with them because they left it at home, or it's not charged. So we do keep a supply of spares that they can use. We also will hold on to sets of them just in case. And then we use a company called Second Life Mac that gives us money on devices that we recycle with them. And I think last year we got, Mr. Martin, do you remember what the check from Second Life Mac was this year? At least, yeah, I think it was closer to 34,000 or so, because of a device that, while we may say, all right, it's not covered under AppleCare anymore, it's a liability to us, because the most frequent damage to these student use devices is broken screens. A screen repair costs us $350. But they have use, and Second Life resells them and just keeps them out of the waste stream, recycles them appropriately. So it's a real win-win. Okay, moving on to communication. That was perfectly timed. So in the current school year, we are working with Mike Benachek. He is our BOCES shared public information officer. Mike had been with us for 1.5 days, and we moved him up to 2 days per week. And he is a busy guy those 2 days. He's in district every Tuesday and Thursday. He's been with us long enough now that folks are familiar with him and reaching out to him. And whether you look at our website, our social media, a lot of that work is Mike's, and he's doing a great job. We implemented Parent Square. So in addition to rolling out Operu, which was a heavy lift, my team said, let's also roll out something else. Because again, there was a continual request, stated need for a unified communication platform that checked off a lot of boxes, and Parent Square is that. We rolled that out beginning of August, and it's been fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And we finished relocating our website content from Blackboard to Final Site. So looking forward to 25-26, we're going to continue that build out of Parent Square. We may actually consider moving our website off of Final Site to Parent Square's Smart Site tool. We're going to be opening up Student Square, which is a function within Parent Square that's focused to students. Right now at the high school, we invited parents who wanted their students to have their student's cell phone available for communications to fill out a form and let us know that they were on board with that. So we're going to be rolling out that Student Square functionality in the next month. We also lit up Community Square, which is an opportunity for community members to self-enroll in receiving content from the district. Now, obviously, not all the content that is created for the district audience goes out to that Community Square audience, but it is another way for us to continue bridging that communication out to our constituencies. And the other goal for 25-26 would be to keep Mike around for 2 days a week.
Make it all look so easy. Thank you. You've done. That's been a tremendous half year. Brilliant. Hey, Scott.
Good evening. Good evening. Reflecting on the current year so far, on bullet number 1, evaluate and enhance the district security. Some highlights there. Continue hardening of the doors, as well as adding a lot of cameras, servers, new equipment, multi-head cameras, and improving outside site lighting. That's a really big one. Bullet number 2, keeping communications with the contractors and managers of the district That was really important with the construction that we had. All the projects moved along smoothly, ahead of schedule and under budget. Really happy about that. And there was no loss of class space. So in September, we walked in our classrooms, which was really a fantastic thing. Scheduling new preventive maintenance to avoid downtime and service disruption. A real good emphasis on what equipment we have. There's lots of new equipment here. Staying on top of it, opening them up, make sure they're maintained, oiled, greased. Some equipment gets much more work than others. So as you can see with our heating systems and stuff like that, it's not just plug and play. There's lots of technology in there. So that's constantly moving. Number 4, developing the facilities planning and projects. We have a team, and this is kind of exciting, that involves the administrators as well as our facilities team. We meet monthly and going over the current conditions of our schools, upgrades, wants, and wishes. And what's really unique about that is that everybody has an equal seat at the table. It isn't just we work for them. The principals and administrators and the facilities people are all at the same level, understanding what they're going through. And I think it's been really good. I mean, that's also going to be feeding into the 5-year plan, which is for next year, it's 25-26. Under the planning for the 25-26, bullet number 1, ensure environment that will adapt and exceed the needs of the district. We're going to make sure we have state-of-the-art equipment. And we're constantly evaluating the spaces and the use to make sure that it meets what our programs are. The next one, creating the 5-year plan. That's something that's really neat because it's going to be alive, it's breathing, it's always moving. It's going to help us budget. So as this goes on, it isn't just going to be a one and done type of thing. It's going to be after year 1 to year number 6. So it's not going to be a one thing. And it's also going to make budgeting, staffing. So that's really neat. And we haven't had that. So kind of excited about that. The next one, to continue to promote higher education and all mandatory trainings. Like I say, once again, a lot of new technology, equipment in there. And also having our staff take the time to get educated and trained on equipment. So it isn't like only this person can run this. A good example of this would be some of our heavy equipment, scissors lifts. It makes life a lot better. It also gives people a little more desire to want to move forward in their current positions. The next one, number 8, the modifying, upgrade, and the use of energy. The big focus of that is going to be at our middle school. As you know, there's going to be a lot of upgrades with the lighting in this school as well as the high school. So it kind of leaves the middle school out there. Now, along the way, we've been doing slight pieces here and there, but with this new capital project, the focus is going to be at the middle school. A great example of this, the most current one is the movement away from mercury-based lighting, energy efficient and not efficient lighting, and we've been in-house converting stuff over to LEDs. The most recent one that was done maybe 2 weeks ago would be the cafetorium. There was 250-watt metal halide lights inside there that contain mercury that cost money to get rid of. They're the ones that don't come on when you flip the switch. So now we have new LED, good for many, many years. So you're going to see more and more of that in that school. Number 9, evaluate all positions, make sure services are consistent with the future needs of the district. If you look around the school district, the classrooms don't look what they looked like years ago. There's soft furniture inside. There's cafe seating. There's hard furniture that doesn't look like the old fiberglass in your traditional classroom. So making sure that we have the right staffing to meet the topography of the schools. I mean, it's always changing. It isn't business. It isn't like time to make the donuts. We do the same thing every day. It's always going to be changing. And that's a really big project, believe it or not. As you, a good example, of that would be, say, the middle school over there where you are, Stacy. There's, a library becomes an art room. And then a tech room becomes something else. So we got to make sure that we move the staff around and make sure that the square footage is adequate for the cleaning needs and everything goes. So that's a work. And then my last one, create and maintain open dialogue and one-on-ones. That's easier said than done. We all live in a really busy world and communication is important. So it's forcing not only myself as well as everybody to make sure that you're communicating well and working as efficiently as we can. So that's what I have.
Question?
I have a question about going into 25, 26, looking at staffing you mentioned to make sure it fits the needs of the building. I imagine that changes, as you mentioned, in the roles of the buildings, but also as they grow. And we're talking about enrollment and things too, as well as our outdoor spaces are growing. So when you're looking at adding those positions, I'm assuming it's to address the need of the size of the district. Is that where you're coming with that information?
It's everywhere. A real good example would be, say, the fields. We're not going to be getting a turf field, which is something that's not alive, versus we're going to be maintaining grass fields. Much more care, different equipment, sprinklers and watering and painting lines on there. All that stuff is additional versus, like, say, if we had a turf field that's already lined. I don't need somebody to paint that grass all the time. So yeah, you're constantly evaluating and making sure that everything is getting done.
And one of the other things we tend to look at too is when we pay outside contractors to come in. So like electricians, painters, things of that nature, and constantly looking at how much we're spending on them. Is it more cost efficient to try to have that position in-house? It's one of those things that yes, but then when you talk about benefits and things of that, so I think that's also what he's talking about as we evolve. It's so much better when you can employ those people directly because then you have them on hand. So I think he's also talking about promoting higher education, getting more of our own staff to have more ability to do some electrical work and things, carpentry and things of that nature. So we're still kind of looking at how much we're paying outside contractors versus whether or not we can sustain a position like that in the district.
A perfect example of that would be right now, if you can see the new energy efficient HVAC and VHVAC units that are at the high school. It's no longer just flip a switch, turn on a breaker. There's technology inside there. There's all type of microprocessors that are monitoring the airflows, pressure sensors in the room, having the ability to have somebody to actually put a meter on that in-house versus me calling somebody out of Albany and come and do that. 2 days later, I get it running. So yes.
You could have an in-house internship program.
Okay.
On some of the capital projects that we do, construction related work, is there any oversight from the village or the town as it relates to zoning or inspection or anything as it relates to our capital projects or work, or is that somehow separately from the state?
Everything we do goes through SED and it's
Okay.
also engineered.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, and that's my knowledge. Have I ever seen village or the town come in and look at our, the sewer maybe?
Yeah, that I
something that
was
we
gonna
might
say, the only
look at.
thing that we would have cross, review on is, yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Curzio, by the way, we have a 4:00 phone call tomorrow.
Clock on that. I'm like, yeah, 4:15 it comes around.
Yeah, by the way, we have a 4:15 to talk about snow. Anthony,
Okay.
you sound so awake,
Yeah.
by the way. Oh, you want me to just say it now? Is that what you're all saying? Yeah, that's not how it works. You have to actually have snow.
Snow turns to rain.
Sorry, I had to break the very serious.
I was sitting there, I was like.
Yeah.
this is-
So my biggest reflection, I think, is securing this NYSERDA grant. And a lot of people worked hard on that. Dr. Hayes worked hard on it. Mr. Martin worked hard on it, as so did myself. And I think that's one of our biggest accomplishments is getting that grant. The others are we decreased out of district runs. Mr. Costello helped with that by bringing some of those students back into Red Hook, and that was a tremendous help as well. We did hire 3 new bus drivers for the district that are qualified bus drivers. They came in with their qualifications. We didn't install the charging systems yet, but we hardwired. We have three garage bays at transportation that are hardwired for the electric chargers. And then there's one over at down at Deering's Barn over at the high school that's hardwired. So once we buy the chargers or purchase the chargers, they're ready to go. The infrastructure is there for them. And then we were also able to get an assistant dispatcher in transportation, which kind of lightened my load a little bit, where I don't have to be in the office. I could be outside supervising. So that was a major help to get an additional person on our staff. And it puts me out on the road and seeing what's actually happening on the road. As far as going forward, I want to continue with the EV purchasing and see if we could secure some more EV buses. I would also like to move forward with upgrading transportation. I have a vision where we have our own training room and a room where we could do training for our drivers, where we don't have to go and change the whole library at the high school. I have to move tables there, move seating there, just to get our drivers in to have a meet or additional yearly trainings. I would love to have that in the garage, but before they did it at transportation, they would actually pull all the buses out of the garage. The mechanics wouldn't be able to work, and they would set chairs and tables up in the bays where they repair the buses. I would love to get a training room somewhere in the transportation complex. And again, we're still looking for qualified drivers. I have 2 drivers that are talking about retirement right now. And I have 1 driver that's out medical. So basically those 3 drivers that we secured, they're all working already. And, you know, if people retire, it takes time to train these drivers and for those new drivers to learn the district. So we're always looking, and I think it's very important to keep the new drivers coming in. And as Tom alluded to before with the sports trips, the more teams he creates, the more trips we have to put out. So it definitely puts a strain on transportation, and you know, the more qualified people we could bring in, the easier transportation runs. Also back with training, when these electric buses come in, it's a whole nother training for the drivers that are going to be driving them, plus the mechanics that are going to be repairing them. The bus is still the bus, the brakes are the same, the tires are the same, but there's no oil changes. So New York Bus Sales is willing to come in once we receive our buses and do these trainings for us. The charging stations, we're starting to work on grants for that. We weren't able to start the grants until we received the grant for the buses. Now that the buses are secure, we could start working on the charging stations. and get that secured. Also, the dispatchers are moving forward with the routing, and we're trying to make the routing more efficient. That's a constant thing with kids coming into the district and kids leaving the district. As Dr. Hayes said, the district is, so we have to think about the efficiency, but how long do we want to keep the children on the bus? We want to keep them on the bus, less than 15 minutes. So it's a constant battle.
Yeah, so I think one of the changes is that we've talked about this. There's some buses that have barely any students, and then there's buses that are actually packed with students. And from what I'm hearing about the new state guidelines is that we could perhaps move to ridership instead of keeping a seat for every kid.
Correct.
But you still have to cover all this area. So I think we're trying to look at that now. So I know the public often says that to us, like there's so many buses and there's nobody on it. So they're really trying to figure out, is there a way to do that and not have students on the bus for long periods of time? So they're constantly looking to do that. Another thing I think the board has to, and we all have to continue to advocate for, is that we have bus drivers who are in retirement and they can't, right now you can make more than $30,000 in retirement. If they change that back, we will lose employees. So if you're already collecting an ERS, for example, you used to never be able to make more than $30,000 a year. Right now, you can make as much as you want because there's such a shortage for drivers, for other positions. That's only going to stay in play to June. That will significantly, we have retired correction officers. We also have SROs that are in that position. So I think it's something that people are not really talking about, but I don't know how schools, I mean, it's going to definitely hurt drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the drivers are retired law enforcement, corrections. So if a lot of them are collecting their pensions, and this is a win-win. It's a easy job where they have the middays open. It's very convenient for them to keep busy. So if they change that guideline, then it's definitely going to hurt us as well.
When would we know about that?
It as of right now, it expires June 30th, 2025, but there's a lot of advocacy to keep it because there is a statewide bus driver shortage. Schools are really struggling to fill those
I don't
positions.
understand who that benefits to change that.
I think it has a lot to do with retirement systems. I don't know.
Okay.
It's just one of those points that we don't want to happen because these are really hard to fill. I mean, we're lucky. I know you're driving sometimes, Sean's driving. I mean, they have to go out of their way to fill all these runs, but at the same time, if we lose those drivers, I don't really know what we're going to do. So I think that could be something that when you're speaking, in the advocacy point of view from a board, I think that's one of the things that there's so much going on right now in the state, but that's one of the priorities I know from the superintendent group in the state. If they get rid of that, we are going to be in really significant problems. And some people are doing it with teachers. Some school districts are doing it with administrators. So we haven't been able to, we don't have to do that, but there are all over the state people employed that are retired and came back and are going over the $30,000 cap.
And then my last ad would be to try to help retain some of these new drivers. When the new drivers come in, it takes them a good year to learn the district. Our routing program also offers a tablet that would go in the bus, and I think that tablet would help the new drivers and make their jobs a little bit easier because then it would have step-by-step directions to each stop, and it's updated daily. So when we hand out a run, instead of handing out a paper with written directions, they could just listen to this tablet and see where their next stops are, and I think that would help a lot, and it would be easier to retain some of these new drivers as well.
Anything about bus patrol?
So
Your camera system?
a bus patrol pretty much maintains itself. They know before I know if a camera is out of service, and they'll send a tech out. Bus patrol's really working out well, I believe.
I have a quick question. So I know like post-COVID, ridership has significantly decreased. And then hearing about new state guidelines, do we have the option to think differently rather than purchasing full-size buses? To smaller buses or vans, multi-purpose, using some of those for sports runs?
So before the EV mandate came to play, I was purchasing 30-passenger van buses, and that was working out well. Some of the smaller teams like tennis and swimming, we would put them on the vans and utilize the van. But now with the EV mandate, a van of 30-passenger capacity costs just as much as a full-size bus. So the savings is kind of lost with purchasing a smaller bus.
What's the timeline again on the 6? I know we've used 2 and there's
Yeah.
4 left. What's the end? Does it expire?
Yeah, 2026. So we have to use it by next year. Yep. And we also had to identify the specific type of bus that we would purchase, so we aren't able to change that at this point.
And you'll get those numbers to us?
Next week, we'll have a full presentation. Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Mr. Anthony, you got our little sampling right here.
Yes, good evening, everybody, and thank you for having us here tonight. I'll get right to the sample, I guess, if that's it got everybody's piqued their interest. It's a New York bean salad, but what's in it, and it's part of my talking points here, is the ingredient. There's a dehydrated powder. It's 80% broccoli, 20% radish. So there's a half a teaspoon in everyone's serving there, which is equivalent to half a cup of raw organic broccoli and its nutrient value. So it's just a nutrient dense. I've worked with this stuff in the past. It's come back around again. So it's piqued my interest, and it's more of a show and tell type of thing. I'm not selling it but in a sense that this could play a good role in our nutritional value for our students in the sense that we can't cook it. It has to go into like a salad dressing or yogurt, smoothies, those type of things. Or we can sprinkle it on food after it's been cooked and taco meat and things like that. So it would be a half a teaspoon per serving, which would be the equivalent of a half a cup of broccoli. So during the course of the week, right? So when you add that up, that's a significant amount of nutrients for the students, and they don't even know that they're getting it. And there's a couple cut sheets on this. This is coming out of the city of Poughkeepsie. There's an organic, actually here you can start passing this around and take a peek. It's the same thing as, here you go, Jack, you can hang to the left. But it's an organic, indoor organic microgreen garden in the city of Poughkeepsie. So really, so that's what you're eating in front of you. So you got a half a cup of beans and a half a cup of raw organic broccoli in front of you. So you've got your nutrients value probably for the average person for like 5 days, because if most people eating processed foods, they're getting next to nothing, right? So, but we'll get back to that. So the reflections on our 30% initiative, it's going like gangbusters. So I'm really impressed with the progress we've made, and it's only in the event that a lot of vendors, it's created a lot of enthusiasm with our local vendors and our local farmers. So there's, once they see, us doing this, and then, Rhinebeck and Pine Plains, and then our other my colleague in Pauling School District, the 4 of us make up 30% of Dutchess County, which is 30% of Dutchess County is doing the 30% initiative, which is no one's doing that in the state. So, which is a great achievement. So, with that being said, that's growing by leaps and bounds. So we're super proud with that, and which also spills over into our menus. I'm doing a meatless March menu. I did it last year, and it it came across, it got picked up, it was a lot of enthusiasm on both sides of the aisle, right? So, which I like to see anyway, because I like to see who's paying attention out there. But, and that was only 15 serving days on that menu because we had spring break. So I'm doing again this March, whereas I believe there's 20 serving days. So I have to ramp up and increase my game, because I got to fill 5 more days. And then, because that wasn't enough, I wanted to do a gluten-free April menu, right? So, but the benefit to that one is there's only 15 serving days in April. So I'm able to, well, I'm getting close to sourcing enough grains, and that's what it boils down to. Because with our 30% initiative, with our natural products from these farmers, the lettuces and the chicken, the raw beef that we're getting naturally gluten-free, and our fruits, veg, and milk are gluten-free. So really, it's the grain component. So it's not as hard, I would say, to achieve it because I have to five grains. But it's being creative on how I can keep reproducing them week after week, which is 3 weeks, 15 serving days. I think we can do it. I'm going to go for it, and I'm this close. So and then part of that initiative with sourcing local minimum processing, that again the product lines have been expanding with the vendors, Thurston's, Ginsberg, Ace Endico, and then unfortunately Featherridge Farm went out of business. They closed up in up here in I can't remember the Elizaville, but we have Hudson Valley Egg on the hook right now, and Hill and Hollow Farms out on 199 going out towards Milan. So we're talking with them, though. I'm not too enthusiastic at buying eggs at $5 a dozen, but at least we'll have them anyway for at a minimum. Because also part of the 30% initiative, we utilized a grant that we had gotten for that local food grant of $12,000. So that helped offset a lot of this. And New York State is putting out another $27 million for grants for another round of money for local food. So we're definitely going to be in line for that. The high school had new serving lines installed. We added another panini press because that's wildly popular. So those 3 panini presses are like an 1850 locomotive crossing the desert plains, because the kids are just going head over heels for those panini. So we're super excited about those. And the deli line will be open during Meatless March. So don't let your heart be worried. All right. So let's see. We're continuing our strengthening community outreach, right? Nick Asienzo, a fantastic community member. We worked with him, or our department. We go in as he does. What's that called, Donna? The low-cost market. I know you don't know. I'm just because your smiling face next to me. The no-cost market. He does that over Veterans Day weekend. So we go there. When I say we, myself, and there's other students and other staff members here in the school. So it's a community event. Actually, we went to, he gave us a little thank you party at Elmendorf Inn, right? Yeah. So that was, so what we do there, he brings in all kinds of food from all over the county here. It's like a Chopped episode. I go through there and create a bunch of recipes and do taste testings, and the folks from the community come in and, and they get to come in and enjoy the food that he's doing there. So the Mill Road Garden is still going strong with us with Doug. So that's always a program that we like to help out. And then the lawmakers we petitioned. I went up to Albany about a week and a half ago, and we were lobbying for universal free meals and to expand the 30% initiative. Because the 30% initiative right now is only for lunch, so we wanted to include breakfast. So that's what we did that in the up in Albany about a week and a half ago. So that was exciting to strong arm some of these guys to show them how important it is. How we're feeding kids. Everyone does a great job here, taking care of them. So it's only right that we do provide them a meal. So again, all this is like for planning for 25. I just mentioned including the breakfast for the 30% initiative, doing the conscious products purchasing. I'm looking more at more plant-based serving utensils and things like that. So I got 3 more food shows to go to between now and the middle of May. So I'm putting a strong emphasis on that as I see the vendors there. And then just procuring more minimally processed foods, because there is a transition going through here, and it's not as fast as I want it to go, but it is moving, because as each passing year, because particularly right now, as we speak, I'm looking at foods for next year from the USDA. I have to have that secured by March 7th for next year already. So there's a transition because I put money towards produce through the USDA, and then I can process chicken, and I can send it to Tyson, Rich Chicks, Pilgrim's Pride. There's places to send it, but because I'm transitioning and doing more local products, I still have to use government money. We get about 40-something thousand a year for government money. So and that's the challenge. And where do I put it? So the direction of putting it in minimally processed foods is very narrow, but there are a couple narrow spots where I'm going, and it is more costly, but that's okay because we're getting grants from the local foods. We're getting 19 cents for every lunch extra for our initiative. So it does balance out in the end. And then that again, another thing that next bullet point says expand our menus for more clean food items, eliminate artificial food dyes. And I'm already in the process of doing that. Okay, I'm thinning all that stuff out, and our breakfast cereals, all the number 40s, the yellow 5 and the blue 1 and any other crazy ingredient like that. That's say goodbye to that, folks, unless you can give me a good argument on why we should have it. But right now there's a handful in our breakfast cereals, which we're replacing it with other items. So it's not costing us any more or any less. It's just swapping things out. That's all. I got a long list of approved cereals that have no dyes in them. So those are on the way out. And then in a handful of our snack items, those are all going to go goodbye, and we'll just get other things in its place. So no more. So if anybody wants to make a collective wave goodbye to the food dyes, okay, I'm in for it. So we'll get rid of those, and we're sizing up Linden Avenue Middle School for a new serving line. Okay, so I've had a couple of folks in there sizing, making measurements, and give me renderings. So we're looking forward to that. And we're still participating with the Feed HV program. It's a food pantry here in the Hudson Valley. And anytime we come up to the long weekends and holidays, they get the produce, any milk's outdated and things like that. So that gets filtered out to the food pantries and places like that. And the composting is still going on. That can only grow from here. So we're just keeping our feet to the fire on that. And then by the looks of things, after lobbying up in Albany, it's in the governor's budget this year is for universal free meals, right? So that looks like well, we got our fingers crossed, right? We won't know till it's official, but that's the sense that we're getting. So, and I anticipate an increase in participation. We saw the breakfast went threefold with the Nick Osienzo Foundation helping us out with breakfast. So based on that, even if we did half of that for lunch, that's still going to be a screaming increase in our lunch program. So that's it in a nutshell. Anybody have any questions?
Would the universal free meals just be limited to lunch? Would that include breakfast?
That will include breakfast as well. Yep. So the first one's on the state. The state has to pick it up. The federal government's still not involved. There's 9 states right now in the United States that the states had picked up the universal free meals. So New York is going to add to that, but it's one meal. And then if anybody wants anything else, it'd be, they have to pay for it, an extra entree or an extra vegetable or fruit they have to pay. So they have to have money on their account.
Panini.
A second panini. Yep. You'd have to pay for the second panini. Yes.
How does that affect like the food production on your end? Are you needing to make sure that you have enough for every student who might ask for one? How does that
Yes, yeah.
work
So
for you?
correct. Yeah, we always have plenty of food. I mean, that's never an issue. But right, it's just going to be transitioning instead of preparing 175, 180 lunches at the high school. That's a pretty close number of what we're doing now. We'll prepare for 290, 300. And if I had it my way, it would be all 500 students in that building, but we'll get there. And that's the goal. Feed everybody. Everybody eats.
And then the food that isn't consumed, would that also go to feed HV or?
Yeah, typically those items are that we donate to the Feed HV go or for the long weekends and the spring breaks and things like that. But the day-to-day leftovers, typically, we cool them down and then we can utilize them and make them, utilize them in another dish for the following day or make a special out of it, something like that. So that keeps the waste to a minimum too. That's a typical food cost strategy, is to utilize it as another or a product type of thing. Yeah. Anything else? We're good? Everybody's happy, Mrs.?
Yeah, I took a
Thank you.
picture, I took a picture of that so I could order some so that I can get my daily count in.
Yes, yeah, and it's, I don't know, I like it.
that was
It's
really
good. Actually, too, we have a superintendent's conference day. We're having training. We got these farm to school trainers. We've got the guy who's been putting this together. His name is Brud. He's got a Dr. Robert Graham, Food for Medicine, Fresh Medicine is the name. So his focus is, non-big pharma. It's all about nutrition as medicine. So I'm having it over at Pine Plains. This is the first time my whole history here that all three districts has super and conference day on the same day. So we're collaborating out in Pine Plains with the folks there, cooking classes, and the doctor's going to go to give our staff the importance of nutrition as opposed to, it's going to be part of the cooking class, but we have that going on too real quick. So. Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks. All right, so we are going to be going through the high school information. I'm going to go through relatively quickly, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. As always, the first thing I want to highlight is the bottom bullet point on the left side. In the course of a year, our graduation rate jumped 8 points, which is a pretty seismic shift. It puts us at the top of the county, maybe behind one other district by like 1 percentage point. So it's a great thing. We're very excited. And I do want to give a shout out to Ms. Lynch, who I believe owns a lot of this. She chairs our MTSS committee, where they really target those at-risk students, whether it's social, emotional, academic attendance, and they say, what supports can we put in place? So I think that's paying off in spades, as is apparent in the numbers. So I just want to thank her for her leadership on that committee. Going through everything else, really last year's goals and this year's goals, there's different bullet points, but it's all the same in a way, because we focus on really two things: expanding opportunities and deepening our instruction. And no matter what it is, that's always the lens that we look at it with. Certainly the aesthetic improvements that we're really excited about and are thankful for the district support, and Dr. Hayes for all your support on this. By growing the aesthetic, it sets the tone, makes it a home for our students. So that's really crucial. But the academic nuances and changes are just so exciting, and it's all going to continue to build. So this past year, we brought in IB for All and the new English electives. We've talked about that, so I'm not going to get too much into the weeds on that. But we continue to build other new courses this past year: Mind Body Wellness, Freshman Focus, and spending a lot of time looking at that deep learning. Talking about the shifts from Blue Ribbon, talking about the Rater Profile, how to connect that to our instruction. To really do meaningful work on that, it's not a one-year goal. It's a 3 to 5 to 10-year progression. And I think we're well on our way in a lot of ways, so we're excited. Coming into this coming year, we're really focusing on taking that and going further. So IB English for All is going from 11th grade to adding in 12th grade as well. So half the student body is going to be in an IB class starting next year, which is pretty awesome. And we've already seen some exciting data on that. We are looking to continue to grow our technology offerings and our computer science offerings. One class I'll highlight that we haven't even made it official yet because we're gauging student interest, but we're looking to bring in a new Discovering Computer Science class, which right now we have 2 AP level computer science classes, which are awesome, but that's intimidating. If you're a student that maybe hasn't dabbled in computer science other than, just basic utilization of a MacBook, you might not want to jump into a class that starts with AP. So this is a class that anyone, regardless of any ability, the caveman from the Geico commercial, could be in this class and be successful. So we're hoping hoping that we'll have a lot of 8th graders into 9th graders take that. And eventually we want to build a 4-year, real true pathway for computer science. But that's the first step, building those numbers to justify that as it grows. There'll be other new classes in family consumer science, ELA, and technology this year. We're looking at expanding our seals that we offer with the Seal of Biliteracy and the Seal of Civic Readiness. Definitely supporting our English language learners is always what's such an important name of the game right now, and that's from an academic and a social emotional standpoint, of course. We want to continue to grow our IB diploma program. This past year, we broke all our records with 35 juniors that are going full diploma. I'm hoping we'll exceed that next year. We might not. We'll see. But either way, it's still moving in a really great direction. And we want to, just continue to grow that programming. So we're looking at potentially adding a technology position and increasing a science position from 8.6 to a 1.0 based on all the students that take 4 years of science in high school, which is unique in a lot of ways. So that's that. I'm happy to answer any questions or to turn it over to my colleagues. Thank you.
What does move point science, 0.6 science teaching position to 1.0? I don't understand.
So
what
we
that
have a staff member now that is only a 0.6. So they teach like
I got it.
2.5 classes.
They're like halftime and make it.
Right, to make it so they can offer more in the course of a day.
And I think one of the challenges of adding a technology teacher is actually finding one. We're really lucky at the high school right now to have a tech teacher that can do industrial arts. So the welding, the program, the, building, all like automotive. But that's not something that the new technology programs are also encouraging. So a lot of the teachers that come out now with that degree are more looking at like computer science or project, what do you call it?
Engineering.
Engineering, yeah, project lead the way, those types of, so even if we want to do it, it's going to be very hard. I think the school that graduates students, they graduate like what, 3 a year or something, and for the whole New York State. So you're in competition with basically every district in New York State for those teachers. So it's a huge shortage, but we feel like we're going to get money.
It's really no competition. It's
Yeah.
just about someone that wants to live in the area, like
Yeah.
within a radius.
Yes, I know they want to come here. Any other questions? Stacy and Paul.
Good evening, everybody. All right, so for Linden Ave, our 24-25 goals, we are entering year 4 of our block scheduling. This has allowed us to maximize our time in core subjects. It allows for student choice with electives. They're getting more choice effectively. And we have centralized intervention block. We've added new courses, What I Need, instead of a study hall. It's a more focused learning environment for the students. Taking a page out of the high school's playbook, we did middle school success skills for 6th graders to really transition to middle school. We have brain, body, and wellness, AIS skills, executive functioning skills, mural design, which I believe they did the science room, right? If you walk to our science room, they did a beautiful under the sea mural for them. Lifetime personal wellness. We're continuing to improve our learning spaces with classroom furniture and flexible furniture throughout the building. So we're continuously adding those to our classrooms. We're working with our science and math departments to make those instructional shifts to align more with our next gen learning standards. Our library, we have added new furniture to our library, and we have weeded out many of our books that are not checked out frequently or out of date or things of that nature. So we have done that. We have a new innovation lab in upstairs in LAMS, which we are looking to add a couple more screens and workstations for student groups to have different workstations across the classroom, and for classes to use that. Classroom libraries in English 6 to 8. We're going to have a piano lab. We're waiting for the great grant for our piano lab with Mr. Pogue Miller, which will be an exciting opportunity for our students. And then finally, for our 24-25 goals, I'd like to say we, but it was really Mrs. Smith, who's worked with the high school woodshop class in creating a new shed. So Mrs. Smith worked with the class to create and design a shed for our playground equipment. That was really, right now we have a little cart that gets pushed out, but we have all this great new for playground equipment. So we wanted something to go with that, but include our high school students. So they created and built and designed a really cool red and white shed for us that we plan on. We could always throw a staff member in charge of that, but we're looking to maybe have a student every lunch period be in charge of that, create some ownership over their own recess practices. So those are our goals for 24-20.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brown. And just to add to the new shed that's happening, we want to thank Mr. Hutman at the high school. His residential construction class came over, and our principal's council students, one of the items that keeps coming up is more equipment for recess, more options for recess. And so this shed will help us be able to make those things available. So it was really a collaboration of our students and the high school students. And we're excited. Now the next big obstacle is how we're getting it from the high school to Lambs. So as Paul mentioned, we are in year 4 of our block schedule, and our block schedule at Lambs is unique because it's a 40-60 block, which we feel is more developmentally appropriate for early adolescents as opposed to an 80-minute block. So it allows for that project-based time and extra time with teachers in order to make those social emotional connections, but doesn't keep them in one place too long. So it does seem to be really, it really has been successful with students and also preferred with our teaching staff. And we're especially feeling great about our academic side of our planning. And this year we're taking a little closer look at how we're planning for creative arts and world language, because as we continue to hone it, we do see some areas where that could be improved slightly. So we've invited our creative arts teachers and our world language teachers to be part of our scheduling team. We're also looking at adding for next year some materials that will support some of our new courses that Paul mentioned. And we've also shifted some of our spaces that was mentioned earlier. So looking at some of those materials that will support our new programming and our shifted spaces. We will continue this year to support our ELL, our English language learners, both from a social emotional perspective and academically. And that looks like helping our teachers understand how to meet their needs best, and whether that is having a cultural awareness of where that student is coming from, but also how to make sure that we're meeting their needs from an academic standpoint. So trying to increase their toolbox there. We're going to continue our work on the library, as Aaron and Scott have mentioned as well. So we are really complete with phase 1, and now we're looking forward to phase 2. And the goal is to transform that space into a learning hub. So it was a big deal to move the library from the upstairs and to where it was kind of off on its own a little, down to the central part of the building. It's now a place that students are in and out of during lunchtime, before school, after school, and that's what we want. We want it to be a landing place. So we've improved it with furniture, and we are now looking at how to really do open up that space a little bit more and make some of the structural improvement. We are looking at year 3 of adding some of our new classroom furniture and creating flexible spaces throughout the building, as well as looking at adding another piece of recess equipment. We did add a thank you, I lost that word this year, which has been a great success. And it was a little different for us to take on a playground at the middle school. There aren't a lot of middle schools that have playgrounds, and students said that they wanted it, and we added it, and it has been a huge success with kids. They are on that equipment every day that they're out on the field, and we want to continue to add more pieces in the future. So that piece, that bullet and the bullet above it with the furniture spaces, those are things that we're looking at with students, because we want their input as we look to continue to improve those places, because they're for them. So, and what we're finding with a lot of our work with the principal's council students or student council students is that they have great ideas, and they really are thoughtful about how we can improve our school. Next thing is an exterior sign. So this came up at the end of last year with our BLT, it's our building level team. And it's something that we are looking for, we are looking at adding on the West Market side of the building. There are 2 signs there now. So we're working with a company that is looking at the parameters from the town perspective. We want to make sure that it's aesthetically pleasing. We want to make sure that it meets all of our coding for the town. And if we're able to do that, I think it could be a great place for us to be able to communicate with the community. I've also talked with Kyle about, even sharing that what we put out, and Brian as well, but being able, because of our central location in town, that sign could be a place where we're able to share information about the district. We're also looking at our sign, as we have transitioned to the next gen standards in science and the new lab requirements, we have noticed a real need for science supplies. So that is one of the asks for this year, to support those new requirements from New York State. And last, I have a wireless microphone system for our cafeteria. Years ago, a system was put in it has not really worked well, even over many years. So we want to look at that again, because that is not only a space that we use for meetings and workshops and whatnot, but it's also a performance space for students, and it not having that or being tethered to the wall is sometimes prohibitive for us. Thank you. And any questions?
The block scheduling, remind me how block scheduling is structured at the middle school.
Sure.
And what some of the, a little bit on some of the improvements you're on.
So our block schedule's 8, we have 8 periods. 4 are 40 minutes and 4 are 60 minutes. Academic classes, so the 4 core subjects, alternate daily, 40 minutes and 60 minutes. And so with our academic classes, New York State requires us to teach 7,200 minutes for seat time. Our block schedule is 9,000. So we are exceeding what is required from New York State in the core area. This schedule also improved what we can offer for creative arts by changing our period for creative arts to exclusively an hour. We're able to cover all of our seat time for creative arts by the end of 7th grade. And that allows 8th graders to have some choice, which was never present at all in the middle school prior. So if you have a student that's really into art, they can select some art classes instead of being put into a class that is maybe not suiting their interest. And I do think overall that does help us support programming at the high school as well. And the other thing that we have that is part of our block schedule is adding the WIN period. So what I need is the intervention block. It's a structured study hall versus a traditional study hall. If you're in if you're any of the grades, but if you're in 7th grade, for example, all of your teachers and all 7th grade students have the same WIN period. So if you need to catch up with a teacher, have something retaught, you missed a test, everyone is available at the same time.
That makes a lot of sense.
So that schedule is very hard to schedule. It really is very difficult to schedule, but just like budgeting, it's kind of that behind the scene work that allows for so much else to happen. So it's well worth the extra work it takes to make that schedule actually flourish within the building, and it's helped us add a lot of other programming.
And I think one of the most innovative things a principal can do is create a schedule. It's one of the biggest things that can change instruction. So I don't think she's downplaying this. No other school district is doing a schedule quite like this, because even when you try to work with the online people to handle the schedule, they're like, what are you talking about? So this is really something that Stacy has really thought about. How do I create this level? Kids need choice, and that we know we start losing kids and younger, they're not engaged. So creating that choice, but also that universal intervention time too. So every student at some point is going to need to be enriched or remediated. So I think creating that block. So it's been incredibly, I think, helpful for students, and really the focus. It's very difficult to make it, because I see the challenges all over the wall, and there's many meetings, but they're constantly looking to improve. So I think there's a lot of credit to not doing what standard, because the state says do this, we go and have these 40-minute classes. That does not work for students. So it's great to continue to do that.
I just wanted to say it's great to see this emphasis on classroom libraries and still the attention to keeping libraries current and relevant because as we know, students are reading full books much less than they used to. And I think it's affecting, curriculums and how teachers are approaching what they're doing in their classrooms. And I just like to see this, that books are still being presented to students. It's very important.
Absolutely.
Quick question, the exterior sign that's being discussed, is that suggested as like a replacement of what's currently there, or are there like digital LED considerations happening?
It would be a replacement of what's already there. And so working with a company, we do know that to replace it, we have, they have contacted the town. We know that we'll have to take down what's there and replace what's there. And yes, we would look at digital, but we want to also be mindful of neighbors and our light pollution. So we want it to be aesthetically pleasing, and also match the character of the building, which is a beautiful historic building. So looking at the design carefully and thoughtfully.
Cool, that's really great to hear. I think at some point, the idea of having like a digital LED sign came up in either community engagement committee, but we didn't really like harp on it too much. And I was gonna actually ask just generally, like what's the best place to have that conversation, whether it's with facilities, but it sounds like you guys are on it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And before these two stars start, I would also commend both of them for the transition to Mill Road. And I think there's been a lot of benefits to that as well. So turn it over to the stars.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think we're going to talk about that in a second here. So because we're the last in line,
Make you first next year.
thank you. I appreciate that. You just want to make sure I stayed the whole time. Yeah. So we always walk away really impressed listening to everybody that has shared and presented. And this night was a lot of the same. I'm listening to everything that's going on, and I think both Chris and I feel like we're really connected with the other buildings and departments, and hearing everything that was going on. If you listen carefully, you saw that thread that was woven in, because when Donna spoke, she mentioned 5 or 6 other people and so on and so forth. I would also be remiss if I didn't say, I cannot imagine a budget presentation next year without Larry Anthony here, because you are like the highlight every year, Larry. Thank you. As we reflect on last year's budget and instructional goals, Mr. Strothman and I really feel great about the work combining pre-K 2 and 3-5. We focused our energy on building and putting together systems in place, a new MTSS model, a pre-K 5 testing calendar, a system for recognizing the rater attributes and successes of our students, building internal leadership capacity. So amongst the staff pre-K 5, we have a lot of expertise and a lot of people that want to share their ideas and professional knowledge and all that. So it's been a crazy year in some ways. It's been an amazing year in terms of growth, and where we are right now in Mill Road, I feel really, really good about that work. Future focused learning, we've expanded STEAM and project-based learning opportunities. Our Young Scholars Program is up to 82 students and gaining momentum every week. What we've done with literacy development and transforming spaces, I think, is something to be really proud of. So as we look forward to the goals for next year, the bullets on the right hand of the slide, I feel like we are in a terrific spot and ready to work towards 25, 26.
One of the things that we're really looking forward to continuing and growing is the Buddies program we started. So we've done a lot of events this year to bring all 600.
Can you just speak into the microphone?
Yes, yeah,
Thank you.
To bring all 650-ish students together at the same time in the same place. So our Veterans Day celebration, our Raider Parade, and the football game following that, which, you know, I only took out one student, it was an accident.
Mrs. Rothman might be a little bit more than Dr. Quaid.
It was an accident. So that has been really fun. And the half days we have spent planning for our buddy classes. So we paired teachers from the elementary side with the primary side and encouraged them to meet on their own for various activities throughout the year. But we also worked with our BLT to plan specific activities for all of our half days throughout the year. And it has gone, I think it's exceeded our expectations. Our elementary level students have stepped up to the plate. They have become mentors. We've seen some of our tricky students who maybe struggle sometimes in school really lean into the buddies. So that's been awesome. We're looking forward to expanding that and developing it. We also, one of our asks for next year is looking at our 4-hour aide positions and switching all of those over to 7-hour aide positions. Reason being that we're finding that there are holes in support during the day in our classrooms that have our 4-hour aides, and they're very hard positions to fill. I just today offered a position, I didn't even tell you yet, offered a position to one of our open 4-hour aide positions. You know, we interviewed, did her references, and she declined because she needs more hours. So it's been a struggle to find qualified people who are a good fit for those 4-hour positions.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about planning for pre-K. As you know, last year, about this time, we had planned to have 2 classes. We were able to expand to a 3rd class over the summer, which made for, you know, a wild summer in terms of like getting hold of the logistics and everything else. We're in a place right now where we have sped everything up. I think our goal after seeing it play out last spring, one of our primary objectives was to speed the process up so that we could get word out. Everybody knew what we were offering. Our focus is to offer as many seats as possible. So the idea of even considering a 4th pre-K class is up in the air right now for us. And we are looking at all those things while remaining flat with faculty. So we are looking to expand some support staff in terms of like full-time aides for pre-K and K classes, but we're going to look really hard and close at the numbers. So we have an interest survey that's out. That deadline is February 28th. We're hoping that at that point, so first week of March, we'll have a good understanding of how many people are interested. We're going to provide a tremendous amount of information for them so they know what they're committing to. And then we want to be able to say to people, you have a seat if you commit to it right now, knowing what's available. So instead of, you know, playing this out in May, June, and July, which no one wants, we want to be having these conversations and have all this information ready to go in March. And I think we're in a great spot with that. We've done a lot of advertising and we've already seen an uptick in the amount of families that are interested in our pre-K program for next year.
How many kids can we offer through? How many seats are there in per class?
Right.
In the 3 that we have,
Right.
and then how many?
Right. So we have 3 classes right now and we have 14 students in each of those classes. We could go up to 18 per class without another adult in the room. If you go beyond 18, you would need another paraprofessional at least in the room based on the ratio. So if we're thinking about 4 classes, if we had 60, 65 students, we would be in great shape with 4 classes.
Yeah, I mean, we could do up to 54 with 3 classes. So if we get up into the 60s, yeah.
Yep.
You have the space for that?
Yeah, I mean, there'd be some wiggling. You know, we'd have to figure out. So we'd be looking at where are our sections in the other places. You know, simultaneously, we're doing kindergarten registration. So the beautiful thing about having 3 pre-K classes is we know 44 students really well because we have them here every day already, and those will be kindergartners next year. And then we have a group of students that will be coming in. So even that number, the exact number of kindergarten students, we don't know quite yet. We have a sense of what that number is going to be, probably very similar to this year, about 90 students, but time will tell. that
What
as
would be
well.
the tipping point for the fourth class? How many?
I mean, you could say you could go to 18. Is 18 in a pre-K class ideal? No. So I think the tipping point for a fourth class would be in that 50-ish range for sure. One of the other things that we're looking at, and I'll just finish this last bullet with, we've been working with facilities. Scott mentioned that before. We do our monthly building enhancement meetings. We're looking at expanding opportunities for our pre-K and kindergarten classes. So if you go outside, you know, there's some elements out there that are geared towards 2 to 5-year-olds. So we're trying to do some different things with natural elements and some really fun and engaging stuff, and working with the pre-K teachers. Scott hasn't said no to everything. He said no to a bunch of things that I tried to get already, but we're working on it, right? In terms of ELL and multi-language learner support, we started our Language Explorers program this year. That's with one of our ESL teachers, the school librarian on the 3-5 side, our social worker, and the library clerk. It has been a tremendous success. Academically speaking, we've seen great growth as readers, foundational literacy skills like out of this world. But the connections that students are making in this program twice a week for 35 minutes has been like, that was in all the testimonials. So when we asked our teachers what the best parts of the program were, they talked about all the personal connections. And when you have those conversations with students, you learn so much more about them as human beings and as students.
Always, it's a buzz when you walk in. There's just a sense that there's a comfort there. They're talking to each other. They're talking to the adults in the room. There's obviously a level of comfort, and it's a nice space to walk into. So one of the other things we will continue to work on is our literacy and math instruction. Dr. Summers and I recently attended the NYSID literacy brief and mandates conference, and it was really nice to hear that we're ahead of the curve. We're doing a lot of what they're saying we have to do in the future. Really thinking about science of reading, what programming we're using, how we're using our consultants to build a really solid curriculum that is tailored and includes a lot of elements that are meeting the needs of the kids. So that's really exciting. And same with math. We have our math consultants helping our teachers to look at a broader scope. What's happening in the grade levels before you? What's happening in the grade levels after you? What language are we using, and how does that travel through to help the kids continue to develop their skills in math? So that's really exciting work too.
And really the last bullet is our future focused work. You know, what we're trying to do with project-based learning and expanding opportunities in our STEAM lab or the Imagination Station, bringing outside experts. We make sure we make time for Shakespeare workshops, garden with Doug, and a whole host of other things. So as we started this conversation tonight, we feel great about where we're at. And I think we have a really strong plan moving forward.
In some of the STEAM projects or technology learning, thinking about what they're doing in the high school and shift more towards computer science, is there any exposure to like even very rudimentary
Yeah, so I think both of our libraries right now do that work. Our STEAM center has several 3D printers as well. And so actually tapping into the expertise, like one of our PTs is like an expert with 3D, not that that's his job, but he's doing a lot of work with our students around that technology as well. We met with several of the Robo Raiders, so having the robotics club come down for our students as well, so they can see it firsthand with our high school students. We have a plan for them to come in a week or two to visit with our 5th graders and do some work as well. So we're trying to connect with different experts across the district.
So we have had a few teachers work on during PD Focus, building a library for teachers when they go into the STEAM center. Quick, easily accessible STEAM activities that they can use, the equipment that's in the room and not have to do so much digging, that it's already there. And it's, kind of like snippets of what's to come, but exposure.
Right, and also the middle school has pathways to that. too.
Yeah.
Stacy, I know that the robotics program is on hold in the middle school. Is there any talk of reviving that to keep the bridge from elementary to high school? I know it's a big commitment.
Oh, no, it is working. I would love to bring the robotics club back to Linden Avenue. We are actively looking for an advisor who could take that on. It is a big ask. It's a lot of time and a big commitment, and also takes an applicant who has that area of expertise. So we've also reached out to some of the students too, in Robo Raiders at the high school, looking for maybe a way to pair up with an advisor that's maybe doesn't have that area of expertise as a starting point, but still we're at a stop right now. But anybody, we would absolutely love to get that up and going. Again, we certainly have some interest from students.
I just wanted to comment on the buddy activities and the connecting of the school. I think that that's so important. I know you're connecting the pre-K and 5, but it's also important for mental health and social connection. And I know it's the highlight for young kids that have and it kind of moves in through the buildings, because I know there's other sort of mentorship programs. So I like that it's starting early. I think that that's really great. I also wanted to make a comment on the outdoor learning spaces, because there is a multitude of space, I feel like, for that here. So I think that's great that that's getting tapped into, and the welcoming of the pre-K groups, I think, helps our enrollment. And I think a lot of parents are looking at that right now with young families, where to land. And when districts are saying like, you have a seat here, I think it means a lot for the future.
I am going to continue to dream about adding a second line. You knew what I was going to say. I'm just going to keep fantasizing about that now that Mill Road is one school together, maybe pooling resources and a teacher who can kind of float around even between classes. I don't know. I'm not the one to design it for you, but I'll still be dreaming about that and hoping that someday we can get there.
So would you like us to add, because it's probably going to be about be $100,000 or for a teacher of that? Well, if we just started with one, it's just the sustainability of it. That's my concern, just as we go on. But if that's something that the board would like to add to the budget, we would do some work and figure out. I mean, it would be very sporadic if you had one for the whole elementary school. But if it was focused, if that's what the board wants us to add.
I think we should take the direction of the principals and administration on determining where they think hiring needs and programs should be.
Is there a language teacher at the primary side of you? No. Okay.
And also to find a teacher. 'Cause we had trouble filling secondary language. Certainly if that's something that you want us to cost out.
I think you guys, like I said, I think you guys work the budget from a bottoms up build on where you think staffing and hiring needs to be. So I would caution the board to we start deciding we want to add a hire here. We could come up with all sorts of places we want to add. So I think it's, it's a good idea. There's a lot of potentially good ideas of things we could expand across the district and throughout different buildings. So I think I'm not opposed to it, but I'm cautious on as a board where we should start weighing in on deciding where we want to add hires. It's my philosophical response to that. And other board members are welcome to weigh in.
I would just, I would be curious as to what that would more concretely look like. If similar programs exist, what, what need are we fulfilling with that before we cost out, what it would take to hire someone? I would definitely be interested in continuing that conversation. I think it's intriguing and it could add a lot of value and kind of a unique element to the primary school.
Okay. Other items that are going to be on the ballot for the budget. So we will talk next week for a possible vehicle proposition and a possible capital project proposition as well. The facilities committee is going to meet next week, but also the board will have to finalize their decision on those two items. And there's 2 board vacancies. And next slide. And just to kind of continue with our budget development tonight, we have our budget workshop. March 6th, we have community conversations. Budget adoption will be April 10th. We have our expo and public hearing on May 8th. We did talk a little bit about how maybe we'll have the expo first, then the budget hearing, because I think some people attended the hearing and maybe didn't go to the expo. So how we can continue to increase participation in that. And then our budget vote is on May 20th. And that is it. So I don't know if there's any additional questions on the process or any other information. I asked that about the cost out because is there anything else you want us to bring to the next board meeting? So as we're developing the budget, we have that information prior to coming. Like we'll have the cost out for the EV buses, the different propositions. But if there's other things you'd like us to bring, please, either now or you can send me an email.
Can you back up to the timeline just for a second? Might be worth just for the board, just kind of reviewing this. So the budget workshop is tonight, the community conversations, we know what that is. Budget adoption, that's the board meeting where we actually have to vote and approve the budget that's going to go up for vote. The budget expo is that like the event we had last year where it's in the
Correct.
The gym and
Right,
there's
skip
lots
the-
of booths and
Yeah.
I thought that was a great event. I think we need to make sure we publicize that
Yeah.
and get attendance. But I thought the event and the booths and everything was fantastic. It was great. I think we just need to make sure we get, a lot more people there. So we got to talk that up.
Yeah, and I think we talked about the hearing beforehand lasted a little bit longer than we wanted it to. So then some people didn't go to the expo, so we're
Yeah.
thinking maybe about flipping. Because we're required to have the budget hearing legally, so maybe if we have the expo and then at a certain time, we say we're gonna start the hearing if people are interested. Yeah, so that we think might,
That's a good idea. Yeah.
have
Yeah.
that a little bit earlier as a possibility.
Yeah. Okay. And the vote's the vote. So, all right.
All right, well, I want to thank everybody on
you
my
so
team
much.
here. I think it's amazing all the wonderful work that you're doing. I know a lot of you have to get up early tomorrow. Just FYI, if there is a delay, Mill Road does not have school. If there's a delay tomorrow, just to put that out there. They already had that. Excuse me, please turn off the mics on this side of the, so.
All right. Do we have any more questions? I think we had on the, not to belabor it, but we did have an agenda item of board comments. So if there's any topics a member would like to raise, now is your chance. Going, gone. Okay. All right. Then we have one final item, which is need a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.